Good evening. Welcome in. This is The Spread. I am Cameron Tarrant. Co-host with me, as always, SoCon John Hooper. SoCon John, take two, buddy. We tried it before. Got the show going, but nothing was happening. So we're good to go now. It looks like we've got some sound now, but so we should be rolling smoothly now.
Yeah, it's a good thing that I didn't go over the air there because I was going to give Coastal Carolina some bulletin board material.
Yeah. About App State. We can get into that again a little bit down later in the show. App State, Coastal Carolina, big matchup down in Conway this Saturday. It's going to be a good one between those two Sun Belt schools.
Yeah, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a week where, on paper, looking at the matchups and the rivalry games, this is where, normally in the season, this is like, I guess we're really only 2 weeks behind, but it feels like it's a little bit like rivalry week.
Yeah.
You got Bedlam. I think about Bedlam and that how big of a matchup that's going to be. If Oklahoma wins, they could really throw it all into a tizzy.
I believe Iowa State would then be on top of the league.
Right. That's right, because they only have one loss in the league, right?
Yeah, and then to throw any more chaos, if Oklahoma were to win, beat Oklahoma State, and if Iowa State were to lose to Kansas State, I don't know. What does that leave the Big 12?
You almost, since it's a botch season anyway for the Big 12, you almost hope it ends up like that. It would just be so apropos.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, Iowa State, in my opinion, and Oklahoma State probably have been the two best teams.
I think so. That game they played a couple of weeks ago, man, that was a great game. I mean, that was a classic.
Yeah, it was. That was one of the game, probably the game of the year, maybe in that conference.
Yeah, that was a fantastic matchup a couple of weeks ago. But John, glad to be back here. Normally on Thursday night, but moved it here to tonight. We didn't get a chance to talk Sunday about the Masters.
That's right.
A South Carolina guy, Justin Johnson.
Didn't fall down the stairs this year.
That's right. He didn't fall down the stairs at Augusta this year. Actually was able to compete and ended up winning the whole thing, setting a bunch of records on the way to do it. And I mean, here's South Carolina guy, played at Coastal Carolina.
Coastal's hitting it and everything right now. Cliff Ellis is like left basketball season.
Yeah, well, especially this year. But I mean, even you go back to, was it 2016 when they won the College World Series?
I
mean, Coastal has just been knocking it out of the park athletically.
I mean, you can make the argument that Coastal has had one of the better success rates of any mid-major program in the past 5-6 years.
And
you could also make that same argument. Well, for App State football, you could. Unfortunately, basketball is not so much.
Well, and it's amazing too. They've only been an FBS football program now for 3 full seasons, and look where they're at. I mean, yeah, App State had some pretty good success when they first moved up to the FBS level. I think Georgia Southern did at first too, there in the Sun Belt. But it's kind of just amazing what they're doing down there in Conway.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And Jamie, funny you should mention that. The first year App State was FBS. One of the teams that beat them. 2014.
Coastal Carolina.
Nope.
No?
Charleston Southern.
Charleston Southern with Jamie Chadwell.
Jamie Chadwell was the head coach. So, interesting.
Little tie-in there.
Tie-in, yeah. And I remember thinking then, I was like, obviously, App State's got better athletes. So they're just getting out coached today against another very good coach.
Yeah.
Scott Satterfield, who I guess they're playing right now against Syracuse.
Yeah, I forgot that is a Thursday night game tonight, isn't it? Louisville and Syracuse. Yeah, that game just kicked off. You also have Minnesota Purdue tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting matchup there.
You got UMass and FAU.
UMass, FAU, New Mexico, and Air Force. Man, at 9:30 tonight. That'll be an interesting one.
That's actually not. Well, New Mexico's awful, but I like watching Air Force and their offense. I'm not biased or anything.
Hey, we'll talk about UMass is in our Superdog segment coming up in a little bit.
We can talk about the Ryan McGee article that I seen the other day.
Yeah, his bottom 10. It's amazing. I love that article every week.
The bottom 10 has literally become like Power 5 schools, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That's how good it also speaks to how good of a year it's been for Group of 5 schools.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There's some really good Group of 5 programs this year. But, again.
What are the chances more than one of those ends up undefeated?
Well, I think BYU has a really good shot. Cincinnati, I think, probably has a pretty good shot. Coastal might.
Liberty, I don't know.
Liberty might. Depends.
They play in.
You theoretically probably could have 2, 3, maybe 4.
Marshall.
Jeez. Some really good Group of 5.
I think if Cincinnati and BYU, they would be. We probably agree they're the two best. I think.
Yeah, and I think BYU and Cincinnati are hoping for a little chaos up amongst the top 4 or 5 teams, just so maybe they then could run the table and have a shot at the playoff.
Yeah, I think so. They need a lot to happen in both the SEC and I don't know if they need more. I think they need Clemson and Notre Dame to get to the championship game, I think, of the ACC.
And I think it will. I don't foresee.
I think they would need Clemson. They need Notre Dame to lose another game. They need them to lose like one now and then Clemson.
I'm telling you, North Carolina next week might just be a bugaboo for the Irish.
Right. I think so, too. I could see that throwing, that would be just like, what people always criticize the ACC as being North Carolina's conference.
Yeah.
So, like the one year they let Notre Dame in, it'd be like the John Swafford effect.
Gonna be great.
And it would be amazing because it would keep Notre Dame. I mean, I guess they would essentially tie Clemson, but then I think most people think that Clemson, once they get healthy, I'm not saying that it's a for sure thing that they would win the second time around. It's just going to be tough to beat Clemson twice.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree with you there. So, how about we'll talk a little, and before we really dive into the college football for this week, how about some NFL, John? Carolina might actually have a chance to win this week. Got a very good opportunity against the not-so-great Detroit team coming to Charlotte.
Yeah, even with Teddy Bridgewater not being in there, this week.
Yeah.
You feel good about the chances of them getting a win over. Boy, it would be tough to grow up in Detroit. A little tie-in here, though. Rodney Peete was both the former quarterback at Carolina and I think a backup for a long time to Scott Kramer for the Detroit Lions.
Right.
So there's a tie-in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, Detroit's Detroit. It's pretty much like if you're a quarterback and Cleveland's got the number 1 pick, you don't want to be the best quarterback in the country, in the nation. So
yeah. So who knows? I mean, they played a pretty good game against they had a chance to win late against Kansas City, couldn't get it done.
Last week against Tampa, was kind of a nightmare, but
that was to be expected last week because Tampa just came off that just brutal loss to New Orleans. I mean, complete just meltdown.
31-0.
Yeah. So I mean,
And
I wasn't necessarily surprised that they just handed it to Carolina, but what was surprising was the week, just a couple weeks ago. I mean, they were right there with Kansas City, who just won the Super Bowl last year and is one of the heavy favorites to win it again this year.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, their offense is just so hard to stop because they've got so many weapons. Hilaire has added just a whole new element to their running game. They already had, Hill, who was, jet fast. So you add another guy like that, and it makes them that much more difficult to shut down.
We were talking before the show. You mentioned the game last night between Arizona and Seattle, that NFC West matchup out there.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the two best teams in that division going head to head. Great football game. But Russell Wilson always does what Russell seems to do, and that's win big time games when it matters.
Well, and a great quarterback matchup. You had Kyler Murray, and they had come off that big emotional win on the Hail Mary. Was it Buffalo?
Yeah, against Buffalo. DeAndre Hopkins making that catch.
Yeah, really 2 weeks in a row for them, to be involved in sort of a game, being on the other end. But this time, but yeah, great. I thought if I had to guess, it's the best game most people would say if they'd watched it and they'd seen all year. It certainly was the best game I've watched.
It was one of the better Thursday night games. Probably the best Thursday night game for sure.
The Thursday night games have been so much better than the Monday night games.
The Monday night matchups have just been awful. I mean, This Monday we actually get a fairly decent matchup this Monday night with Tampa and the Rams.
That'll be it should be a great.
It's
points.
A far cry from the Patriots-Jets matchup that we had a couple weeks ago,
which took a 50-yard field goal by New England to win it.
So bad.
God, I think they probably. I don't know what they'll probably end up 7-9. I think
New England.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough with the way the Bills have been playing, and now look at Miami. I mean,
Miami's turned it on, man.
Yeah, they have with Tua at quarterback now. Yeah, they're really good. How about New Orleans? Drew Brees out, so Sean Payton named Taysom Hill the starter for this week against Atlanta, going over Jameis Winston.
There's a reason for that. Didn't Winston set so. He set the NFL record for interceptions thrown in a season last year.
35 last year or something crazy.
He broke,
like that.
I think the original record was Peyton Manning's rookie year because, he was trying a lot of different things. And, but yeah, I mean, he no longer holds that record.
Interesting stat though, John. This is the interesting stat for this game. All right. Taysom Hill is a backup quarterback. Comes in, plays that kind of wildcat position that they run every now and then with New Orleans. But get this, Taysom Hill has.
He was from a Sunbelt school, wasn't he?
No, he went to BYU.
That's right.
But anyway, he has more tackles this year than he has thrown the ball.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How many interceptions did he? I'm just kidding.
I mean, probably not.
I mean, of course, he'd have to be the guy making the tackle on every But that is an interesting stat. I mean, I'm almost wondering how that's the case. Does he play any other position? Does he play he doesn't play on the defensive side of the ball, does he, as a reserve?
Maybe there were some fumbles and he had to make a tackle. I don't know.
Because I'm trying to think of how that would be possible. And they had a lot of turnovers when he was in, and he just ended up making the tackle. Because if he doesn't play any other position than quarterback.
And he's 4 for 5 on the year.
And he's made 6 tackles.
Let's see. No. Now it's saying, okay. Now, a couple of years ago, he had more tackles, but I had heard them talk about this game earlier. Like, I'm pretty sure. But I'm looking at his stat. No, you know what it is? He has more receptions than he has passes. That's what it is. That's what it is.
That makes sense. I was going to say.
Now, back in 2018, he did have about as many tackles as he did passes.
So he must have known, like, right away he had thrown an interception.
Yeah.
And just already been, like, going the way the guy was, where he threw it. And the guy was going to pick it off.
So, okay, there it is. So he's got more receptions this year than he does passes thrown.
Interesting.
He's caught 6 passes for 74 yards and a touchdown.
The true dual threat.
And this is coming off last year. He caught 19 for 234 and 6 touchdowns.
Oh, wow.
That was last season. So, yeah Tayson Hill, the true dual threat guy.
There's a lot of group of 5 guys that are like Tayson Hills
in
the NFL.
Yeah.
That come from like a Sun Belt or a Mountain West or, one of those leagues, and they're always good athletes. Like, they might not necessarily be a quarterback like they were in college, but I feel like there's a lot of those guys. I mean, there was one that played for New Orleans. I don't know if he's still with him, but his name was Travaris Cadet from App State.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of like that. He played quarterback at App State, but he's actually, in the NFL, they line him up at receiver, running back. So just interesting there. But a little NFL action. Not that many great matchups. Pittsburgh plays Jacksonville. They'll probably stay undefeated again. With a win this week. Jacksonville's not horrible. But
there's an interesting matchup between New England and Houston. I mean, both teams aren't very good, but it could be.
But this one would be like a playoff elimination game. Almost.
Yeah, it'll probably feel like that anyway. So, I mean, there are some interesting. How about Cincinnati at Washington?
Oof. Well. So again, a chance for
Joe Burrow might have a chance to go out there and win a game. I mean, Washington are just awful.
It's been a pretty tough year for Ron Rivera. I mean, I didn't think he was the right guy at Carolina, but I always kind of liked him as a person.
Yeah, I like Riverboat Ron.
Yeah,
the Riverboat Gambler.
Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. You know who they used to call that in the SEC was Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
Who won we haven't even talked about that. Won the Senate position.
Yeah, former Auburn, former Texas Tech, and former Cincinnati head coach, now become a United States Senator for the state of Alabama.
I always kind of like Tommy. I always kind of found him like humorous in a way.
We joked, hope he's going to pack a bunch of Golden Flake potato chips.
He did those goofy commercials with him like running down the sideline with a bag of potato chips.
I'm Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah. And then he like opened the bag and went, smells like victory in the morning.
Yeah, so hopefully Golden Flake is an official sponsor of a U.S. Senator from the state of Alabama. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. But let's get into some college football for this week, John. Last week we saw record numbers of games canceled or postponed due to COVID-19. And, this week there's another huge number of games that have been canceled or postponed. Luckily, thankfully, none of them are really big games. Correct. Most of the big games are still on the schedule, at least as of right now. Now, maybe first thing in the morning, something could change. One of these games gets canceled, but at least some of the top 25 matchups and things like that are still good to go for this weekend. So might have a little bit better of a weekend than we did last weekend.
Yeah, we will. And And I think only as the season goes along and as we get through, and get into towards the playoff, even if they had to push it back a week or two or whatever, they're able to work. They have a little bit more room now.
Yeah.
If that happens, to not necessarily have to cancel the game. I mean, they pretty much know who's going to be in the playoff anyway. So, I think the games that get canceled like this week, no one really cares. I mean, if it had been like, I hate to say that, but if it had been like Bedlam or the App State game or, something with a lot on the line, that would have been more disappointing.
And we saw that last week. I mean, the Alabama LSU game didn't have quite the luster that it has in years past, but that's still a huge game in the SEC West.
Ed Orgeron spent every day in church trying to get that game.
His prayers were answered.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that game's just been moved, so they're still going to have to play.
He was just like, maybe just give me a few more weeks, and maybe my defense can at least hold it to 45.
Maybe he could figure out his quarterback situation.
Or maybe he's just praying for the rapture altogether.
Yeah. They won the national championship last year. Here we go. I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. I can go up in as a happy man now.
Yeah. He can die happy now.
Nick Saban would not be pleased if that happened.
Yeah. Nick wants his revenge after what happened last year in that game. But probably one of the biggest games that of Saturday that honestly, it's a top 10 matchup that I don't feel like a lot of people are really talking about. And that's Ohio State, Indiana.
Yeah, and I think a great opportunity for Indiana.
Oh, how sweet would it be?
Oh, man, if they beat Ohio State, I think I would actually consider writing their football office a note, just thanking them.
Yeah, even if they didn't go on to win out, or like if they even just lost the rest of their games after that, just to beat Ohio State.
Because it's such an unfootball school. It makes it so cool when they are good. Like, you get...
Like, when was the last time the Hoosiers were ranked this high in football?
I'm gonna pull up their game notes.
Like, we're talking about Indiana's ranked in the top 10, but not in basketball, John.
Yeah, they're actually start off 23rd in basketball.
Yeah, their football team's ranked higher than their basketball team.
Yeah,
which never happens.
That would be like that happening at
North Carolina
or Duke, like when Duke won.
Yeah.
The ACC. There was a point during that season where their football team was actually ranked higher than Duke basketball. So, which is
it's weird.
It's crazy, but it's also kind of a, even though I despise Duke basketball. Well, I don't despise it, but I'm just not a big fan. Like when Duke's good in football, I like it.
Yeah, I mean it's stories like that are always fun to watch. Like when you get a year when an Indiana or a Duke, somebody that's not typically pretty good at football, like very good at football, when they have a good year, it's always fun to watch, and you just wonder.
What would be amazing to me is if they ended up somehow, some way beating Ohio State, getting in, or say they lose this week and go on and win out, and then beat them in the Big Ten championship. And then they play Notre Dame in the college football playoff.
The problem is, though, they can't meet each other. This game will probably determine
Oh, that's right.
the winner of the division.
Right. I keep forgetting that. See, I think they should have done it like every other conference.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, and just like the ACC is doing it the perfect way. I mean, why have divisions in a year like this? Because it doesn't make any sense, especially when you start late. To me. But I mean,
I don't know. Indiana's got a tough task ahead of them, man. They're a 20-point underdog in a top 10 ranked matchup against Ohio
And they're
State.
are they on
There,
the road?
it's in Columbus.
Oh, and I can't even tell you. I'd be lying if I said I could tell you the last time they lost in Columbus.
Ohio State.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Let's see. Indiana game notes. Like, I don't, of course, probably the last time Indiana was ranked in the top 10, number 9.
It's been a magical season so far for the Hoosiers. I mean, to start the way they
Oh my
did.
gosh. Okay. The Hoosiers earned their first top 10 ranking in the AP poll since September 22nd, 1969.
It's been, what, 51 years?
You know, something funny. Remember Minnesota last year was ranked in the top 10 for the first time since 1969, I believe.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. So
No one
this
caught
so
that
this
in
year's
16
so this year's Indiana team is basically last year's Minnesota team.
Exactly.
Well, I hope that doesn't bode well for next year's Indiana team because this year's Minnesota team not very good.
They lost to Michigan, which this year is like if you lose to Michigan, which is funny. You know, we're talking about the Big Ten and the whole state of Michigan for at least the 2 big programs. It's been awful.
Speaking of Michigan, if they go on the road to Piscataway, New Jersey, and lose to Rutgers,
they're an underdog in that game, aren't they?
Michigan, I don't know. But if they lose this game, do they fire Harbaugh before he even gets back to the locker room?
Honestly, I don't know how he survived that beatdown by other than, I mean, they're just going to fire him eventually.
ESPN does. Okay, there it is. It's no, Michigan's 12 points.
But if they lose that game to a team that they got just absolutely, they just blasted a few years ago. I mean, like just as soon, you know, the past 4 or 5 years, you know.
Well, I think it's funny. You know what I think is funny is this Rutgers team absolutely boat raced Michigan State. The next week, Michigan State turns around and beats Michigan.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we're like, well, maybe Rutgers is kind of good. Well, no, Michigan State, Michigan are just awful. Rutgers is better.
Rutgers actually held Indiana to less points than Michigan did.
Well, and the other thing is, Rutgers scored 27 on Ohio State.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
So I mean, Rutgers can score points. It's not a question of their offense.
It's the defense. But although Michigan's defense not been very good either themselves.
So I think that's where Indiana can stay in this football game. Going back to the Ohio State game,
yeah,
they can
Ohio
score. State's defense can be scored on. They're nowhere near the defense that Clemson played.
Now Indiana can, you know, with Penix at quarterback, they've got some pieces on that offensive side of the ball. What is it, Freifogel, their tight end? I mean, I think he's probably the best tight end in the country. I mean, he is amazing at that position.
The guy at Florida, the guy.
Oh, Kyle Pitts. Yeah, that's right. Kyle Pitts. Well, okay, I'll take that back. Freifogel's the second best behind Kyle Pitts. But yeah, he's very good. Penix a quarterback. But I look at this Indiana defense, and while they really haven't, Penn State, Michigan, they haven't really played at a high caliber offense like they're going to face with Ohio State. But I would be interested to see that matchup because Indiana's defense has been very good so far this year.
Well, and the other thing is, if Indiana could, they're going to need some help, obviously. But, where would this game – I know Fields is a Heisman candidate. Where do we put Penix on that, Heisman kind of where do we think him in terms of the Heisman Trophy?
I mean,
if he wins this game,
if he wins this game, I think you have to at least put him in the running somewhere, maybe 5th or 6th. I mean,
yeah, because I don't know. See, I don't think they should. I think it would be wrong to say that well, we're going to dock like Trevor Lawrence for missing 2 games with COVID or whatever. Like, I think that would be totally wrong. If he's the best player, he's the best player. Same with anybody else. Like Penix, or if he wins the game, no matter if his numbers aren't quite as good as somebody else's, he beat Ohio State. I think he should be considered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's quite honestly, there's only really 2, only Trevor and only probably Justin Fields, I think, has had, and maybe Kyle Trask, I'll throw him in there, have looked as good or better than Penix this year.
Mac Jones at Alabama has been pretty solid. But of course, when you're throwing
about Indiana, though.
I get that. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to pick the Indiana-Ohio State game later on, so we'll see if either one of us have the guts to take the Hoosiers on the road.
I'll try, but it's going to be difficult.
We'll see. Let's look at what other games. We mentioned Michigan, Rutgers. All right, South Carolina. We got to talk about South Carolina because
we got a lot to talk
because they just got rid of Will Muschamp this week. Finally releasing themselves of that monstrosity that was the
masochism.
That was the Will Muschamp era there in Columbia. Ended up with a losing record, I believe, overall in his 4 years at Carolina. Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator, now going to be the interim head coach for the rest of the year while they search for a new head coach. We both think guys like Billy Napier at Louisiana, Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina are 2 of the better options that the Gamecocks could go after at the end of the year. It'll be interesting to see, though. They're going on they've got it's a battle of the Columbias this week as they host Missouri,
who isn't really that much better.
No, but Missouri's had some success-ish this year.
Yeah, they're obviously. I think
they're okay. They're better at home than they are on the road, though. And this game is in South Carolina, so I don't know if that bodes well for the Tigers. Because they're not very good away from Faro Field.
I don't know. Like maybe Eli Drinkwitz is a better. Of course, the only game he lost at App State was at home to Georgia Southern. So you might be right.
Yeah,
I might be right. But but still, I mean, South Carolina's what, the 13th best team in a 14-team SEC. We would probably agree on that.
You said you put them at 13.
Yeah. Out of 14.
No.
Oh yeah, they're like 13th out of 14. Who's better? And who are they better than?
Vanderbilt,
Mississippi State.
Mississippi
State.
They're
better than Vanderbilt.
I think they're better than Mississippi State. Mississippi State's awful.
They're not better. Okay, I'll give you Mississipippi State. So maybe 12.
And depending on how they play on Saturday, they might be better than Missouri.
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
They lost 48-3 at home to Texas A&M.
But Texas A&M is a playoff contender.
But it's at home. It's a conference game. You lose that bad at home if you're South Carolina? I mean, Vanderbilt's one thing.
They at least beat Auburn.
But they got beat 52 to whatever by LSU. Yeah.
And then lost 59-42 last week to Ole Miss. Look, I know what you're saying. But I would put out of 14 teams, I think Carolina is either 12 or 13.
And this year's SEC, that's awful.
I mean, yeah, it's bad. I'm not saying, but I don't think they're the next to worst team.
It's not like the 2007 SEC that everybody was like good.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, they might be okay. So if you put South Carolina in the ACC, they might be the worst team.
I don't know. Duke's pretty bad this year. Georgia Tech's still not very good.
Florida State.
Oh man, what kind of game would that
South
be?
Carolina.
Yeah, what kind of game would that be? Florida State, South Carolina. I told my buddy of mine, I lump with the situation that's going on with South Carolina right now. with the same situation that's going on in Tallahassee, to be quite honest. I mean, I think they're very similar situations.
What's the worst job right now? Let's play a game. Michigan,
Yeah.
Florida State, or South Carolina?
Well, it depends on, because you got to think about the fan bases.
Who has the most to do? Like, what? I mean, I think probably Florida State is still the worst job.
Well, I think Florida State's the most demanding. I think the fan base down there in Tallahassee is just awful. Like, I think they just – yes, Florida State has this standard. Bobby Bowden, built that program to be a consistent winner every year, and they've fallen short of that the past few years. But still, Florida State fans think they should be in a national championship game every year, which is just.
But you and I read that article to show how much the recruiting has declined.
Well, and it's not that they don't have the talent; they just they haven't developed that talent. Like they've had no
talent develop. They've had no development past.
Right,
they were in high school.
Because I mean, they're signing 4 and 5 star recruits. It's not like they're not getting good talent.
Blackman was a 4-star quarterback.
I go back to Francois. I mean, that kid was supposed to be very. Outside of some guys recently, like was it? Oh gosh, who was the running back that? Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, very good running back. They've had some defensive players recently that have made some big money in the NFL.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just not been, especially at quarterback, it's just been abysmal.
I feel like they've had a bunch of Chris Rickses the past few years. I think they would or Marcus Outsons. Remember that guy that the only game he ever started was the national championship, and literally he was awful against Tennessee.
I don't know, but
you might not have been born yet.
Let's see, that would have been what, 98? I was 4.
Yeah. So you probably wouldn't remember.
No, not hardly.
But yeah, I mean they had a run of quarterbacks there where
I think Florida State's I think that's a tough job. Although I will say South Carolina, I think Spurrier did something to that program.
South Carolina has been okay. Here's the difference. South Carolina really hasn't declined that much, as much as Florida State has in their program.
True. I mean, you even go back. I mean, Spurrier, the success that they had with Spurrier. He only won.
Still doable.
He only won one. I mean, he only won one division title. That's it.
And that's not an unreasonable place to get back to. Getting back to where Florida State was.
That's going to be tough.
Seems unreasonable.
At least right now, getting back to where Michigan was
seems unreasonable.
I mean, Texas. Texas has gone through 3 head coaches since Mac Brown. I mean, I know Tom Herman.
Gods are saying you used to be a major program. You're not a major program. You're not a major program. Now it's like like a curse almost.
It is.
But LSU. You think this is probably just a 1-year thing because they.
Even look at Tennessee. I mean,
Miami's a good example though. I mean, they were good for so long, and it's taken them so much to get back.
But are they even? I don't think they're really even back yet.
I think they're on the way.
They've failed to win that big game yet.
Yeah, I think it's they really this year the Clemson game. Clemson's a better football team and program now, but when it came time for their opportunity, they weren't really even in the game, except for some special teams mishaps.
How about Virginia Tech? That's another good example. I mean, you look at the legacy of what Frank Beamer did in the in the 90s and early 2000s with that program, and then
Justin Fuente's doing his best.
Well, look, the decline started with Beamer. The decline started much like with
that's fair.
Much like with Florida State, I mean, you could say the late year Bobby Bowden era, they were not very good then either. I mean, they were mediocre. They still went to bowl games.
Somebody gave this stat the other day. I think it was maybe Mickey Plowler or somebody. But from like 1988 to like 2003, like Florida State literally finished in the top like 6 every year.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Like,
I know.
I mean, and if you look at the NFL, like that would be one of the harder things to ever duplicate again. Like, even as good as Clemson is right now, it's easy to see them doing that for maybe a decade or something. But to do it for almost like from over 2 decades or almost 2 decades, that's crazy to me.
Similar situation with Nebraska. Look at the Huskers. They've not been good since Tom Osborne left.
Well, they got a big win this in a game that, Penn State, it was 2 really struggling programs. And
where does Penn State go from here? They're 0-4.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you wonder if their window of opportunity hadn't closed, because they had chances to beat Ohio State, 3 of the last 4 years or something like that, and they couldn't get it done. And I mean, I wonder, like, now if they won't run into that same thing. I wonder if that's, if things don't go well for Franklin next year, he's probably out.
If things don't go well the rest of this year, he may be out.
It could be, but I was going to say, well, they'll give him 1 year because of COVID, probably. I'm guessing.
Look, because this week's not going to get any easier because they got to face Iowa, and Iowa's not an easy out.
Iowa's always tough. Like, Iowa's always going to win 8 games. Like, your job, like Kirk Ferentz probably has the best job security of anybody in the country, other than like Dabo.
And that's a fan base that understands that program. They understand that they're not going to win national championships at Iowa, but they're content with winning 8-9 games a year.
And their fans, like, they're very they're appeased as a fan base because they know how hard it is to actually, at a place like Iowa, to win that.
Yeah.
To reach that threshold. And that's a sign of a good coach, because they're not recruiting the guys that the other, Ohio State's getting like the best players in Ohio and that surrounding area. So
not a lot of talent coming out of Iowa.
Right. I mean, it's basically like, it's like, okay, Kansas would be very comparable to Iowa in terms of the program and but there's a disconnect there, because Iowa's getting the job done as a program.
Yeah.
With similar type players in their state. I've always wondered what the difference in a program like Iowa and Kansas is, rather than maybe an Iowa and Ohio State. I know what the difference is there, but like Kansas is just bad. I mean, and
they have been for Kansas fans don't seem to really mind. You don't really hear Kansas fans complaining that their program is just terrible.
Yeah. I mean, now I think the one thing that would do that is probably if basketball are bad too.
Oh yeah,
probably be like,
but at least Kansas has basketball season to look forward to. So, I mean, it's like Duke fans. With Duke fans know their football team. Maybe they'll have a good year once in a while. They're just going to look forward to basketball season.
I mean, but like, this is not going to sound good, but like if you're South Carolina and you've got Ray Tanner as your AD, how is he making the decision to hire anybody? I mean, I think he hired Frank Martin, which was a pretty good hire because they got to the Final Four. But like his football, like I heard that Muschamp was way down the list when they hired him.
Well, I can't remember. They had all but signed somebody. I can't remember who it was at this. Tom Herman. Tom Herman. Right. He was. They had almost. Tom Herman had all but signed on the dotted line, and then decided to take the Texas job. And so then they ended up going down the list, and that's how they ended up with Will.
How bad was the South Carolina job to have to take the Texas job and endure that pressure? Because
Yeah, but I mean, if you're, I mean,
2 years.
I get it though, because what's a sexier job? Texas?
I know, but like the pressures almost.
No, the pressure. Yeah, I mean the pressures are
like
a lot different. But if you're thinking, man, I'm gonna have better talent at Texas over South Carolina. I'm gonna have better facilities.
Well, okay, here's an example. South Carolina fans think that Mario Cristobal is going to leave Oregon to become their head coach because they're in the SEC.
Yeah,
that's not happening.
Not going to work.
Oregon's a better program, so he's not going to leave to come to a conference. Or like somebody's not going to leave to come coach at a bad team in a really, really good conference. It's not a better job than Oregon, first of all. But
no, not at all. So
I
don't know. We'll see. The Gamecocks. We'll see what the Mike Bobo era.
How long it lasts, and if it lasts longer than it should.
But this would be the most South Carolina thing, though. Is all right. So they've got
hire Hugh Freeze.
No, they've got Missouri, Georgia, and Kentucky. If they go 2-3, I could see them hiring Mike Bobo full time.
They got to be
2-1. Sorry, they go 2-1 over the next 3 games.
They need to go over.
They do, but watch them win 2 of those games. And if they beat Georgia, if they were to somehow
beat Georgia, where Bobo was, played quarterback,
they'd sign Bobo right there.
Yeah,
because you remember,
wow.
Honestly, that Georgia,
who's like that would be another old ex-Georgia player hire. Because Muschamp.
Yeah. But honestly, that Georgia win last year was what saved Muschamp's job going into this year.
Just stop hiring Florida coaches in Georgia football.
That's who they need to go after. Yeah, they've South Carolina has enjoyed a string of hiring ex-Florida coaches. So if they're going to continue that, they need to go get Jim McElwain or Ron Zook, one of those two. And
don't go hire Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
Maybe
Emmett Smith,
Eric Zier, or like I don't even know if these people are coaches, but okay. So here's our criteria. They have to be an ex-head coach at Florida and have played at Georgia.
It's great.
So I don't know.
Too good.
Spurrier actually did play. Yeah, Florida and Georgia have a lot of links to South Carolina, and it's
kind of weird. Yeah, it's a little strange.
Weird.
A little strange, but John, I know the biggest game of the day for you is that App State Coastal Carolina game. I mean, as an App State alumni, as a big App State fan, your guys got an opportunity to go down and beat a top 15 team on the road. In a conference game, in a division game. I mean, this is exactly
for the Sun Belt East.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you want. To happen. This is where you want your program to be. Is for games like this,
right?
I don't know, man. That Coastal Carolina,
the offense though has got to play better.
That Coastal Carolina team just seems like unstoppable right now, though. I just don't see anybody beating them anytime soon, anyways.
Well, I think they've got such good play at the quarterback, but really their defense has been the story of their season so far. How well they've played on that side of the ball. I mean, they shut out Georgia State a few weeks ago, and they're not just beating people. I mean, they're throttling people other than the game at Louisiana, which was a really good football game. And to go on the road and get a win there, that was the first time to me, okay, they're pretty good. If they can go down to Louisiana Lafayette and get a win at a place where they hadn't, lost all to it too often.
Yeah.
And they were ranked. And so they passed that first test. I feel like this is the next one. And this is an App State team that really, after that first year, as a Sunbelt or as a FBS member have pretty much lit it up. As a Sunbelt member, what are they? The 4-time defending champs or whatever. So, I think this will prove to me that if Coastal Carolina gets over this hump, then they're not that they're not legitimate if they don't, but I mean, like, they could be like a future contender year in and year out to App State.
Yeah, I mean, and this is really conference-wise their last big test before the end of the regular season, before what would potentially be the conference championship game, which
because they've already played Louisiana.
Yeah, which if they were to win, I mean, they're probably going to face Louisiana in the rematch.
Right. Well, I don't know, though, because App State still got to play Louisiana. Remember, they had that game canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, but that's a different division.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's no chance of really anyone catching Louisiana now that I look at it.
Yeah. South Alabama's 2 games back, and that's the closest.
Yeah. So App State's got a tough little stretch here, though. They've got Coastal Carolina. Troy's never an easy game for App.
Coastal still got Troy as well. That game had gotten pushed to the end of the year. So, yeah, both Coastal and App still have the Trojans left on their schedules.
Then App's got Louisiana, but that's it. It's in Boone, and then they got to go
to Statesboro.
Southern.
Yeah.
You
don't just walk into Statesboro and get a win.
No, you don't just walk down Eagle Creek and expect to paddle out with a victory. But so Coastal's got, like, even if App State wins this game, they've got they've got 3 really big tests ahead of them. Whereas if Coastal win or lose, they still got the easier schedule to close out the season. How about this? App State is 47-5 in its last 52 games for Sunbelt teams.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I'm looking at Coastal schedule right now, and Texas State and Troy after App State.
How about this?
Is there
App State's 60-13 record since the start of 2015 is 5th nationally behind just Clemson, who is 76-6, Alabama 72-6, Ohio State 64-7, and Oklahoma 63-12.
It's consistency. I mean, they've been the top dog in that conference for the past 4 or 5 years now. I mean,
but and people will say, well, it's the Sunbelt, but it's not actually.
Sunbelt's not
the
bad.
last 2 or 3 years is not a bad league.
John, I'm just looking here. If Coastal wins, all right, then they'll play Texas State. I'm looking at a game on December 5th against Liberty, in which that could be a top 25 matchup between Coastal Carolina and Liberty.
Awesome. We get game day there.
Where's that? And that game is in Conway. Could we please have game day down in Conway, down at Myrtle Beach? That would be fantastic.
Dirty Myrtle.
Marty Smith would be down there with his airbrush T-shirt stand.
Well, I mean, he is going to be down there this week.
I know he is going down there, but
maybe he's going to scout it out in case Coastal wins.
Yeah. That'd be amazing. Liberty, though,
he could be embedded. Like he was embedded at LSU last year. He could find himself at Myrtle Beach.
Liberty, though, has to go through the tough test of North Carolina State and UMass before.
If they don't lose to UMass, if you lost to UMass and you're Hugh Freeze, that automatically would take you out of any job consideration
anywhere.
Yeah.
Exactly. So your boys will pick this game coming up in just a little bit. But your boys got a big game ahead of them this weekend.
Our Beach Mountain snow jerseys to the beach.
Different kind of beach.
Yeah, different kind of beach.
Different kind of beach. All right, John. Every week we like to take a look at some of the biggest underdogs and biggest point spreads out there each week. So I got a nice little handful. I'm not going to do the Clemson Florida State game because
unless it's
Clemson's a 35-point favorite over Florida State going into Tallahassee.
I think Clemson could I don't know. I mean, take tranquilizer shots before the game and probably still be okay against Florida State.
I mean, it's when is when's the last time Florida State was this bad of a home dog?
34 points at home.
That's a lot.
Okay, realistically, if Clemson came to, let's say, Paladin Stadium, they'd probably be a 34-point favorite, but I doubt they'd be much more than that. I mean, that's awful to be in the same conference as that team and be a 34-point favorite.
Yeah.
And we're talking Florida State. This isn't like Wake Forest.
Yeah. So we'll touch that one, but I got some other good ones here, John. A couple of these games include FBS versus FCS matchups. But we'll start with the SEC. How about Mississippi State?
Oh boy.
Going on the road to Athens, Georgia. They're a 25-point dog to the Bulldogs. Bulldogs versus Bulldogs.
I think when they do Mississippi State lines, they should just say they can make it real simple. They'll either score more than 10 points or they won't.
It's true.
I mean, they won't. I mean, and
yeah.
Georgia will probably cover that, I'm guessing. Even though but Georgia's quarterback situation, I don't know. Georgia's offense is in, kind of burned down too.
Yeah.
They can't. I mean, since Stetson Bennett,
who knows? It might be a fairly low-scoring game.
Actually, I'm going to retract that and say that they don't cover. But
Georgia,
the fact that Mississippi State just can't score.
Georgia only wins by 24 points.
24-0.
Yeah, you're probably about spot on about what that game would be.
Yeah.
All right, another SEC game. The Wildcats of Kentucky heading into Tuscaloosa. They're a 30-point dog to the Tide.
Okay, so is there more? Here's a better question: is there more likely of a chance of Kentucky losing like that at Alabama or Mississippi State losing like that at Georgia? I would say Kentucky losing like that at Alabama.
Yeah.
Just because Alabama's offense is so
Kentucky's not that bad. Their defense is
they're
good.
not bad.
The problem with Kentucky is their offense. They're not.
I feel like that's like a broken record. Except you'd think that, but then you look at the scoring in the SEC this year, and it wouldn't be a clear indication until you get to Kentucky and to
yeah.
Then you get to Mississippi State, and you're like, okay, so offense has been a tough deal for them.
Yeah. I mean, even for, like you mentioned, even for Georgia at times, it's been a problem. How about Stephen F. Austin going on the road to take on Memphis? Stephen F. Austin's a 30.
The Lumberjacks.
Tigers. The Lumberjacks are a 30.5-point dog.
Now, see, I think they'll stay within 30.
You like the Lumberjacks to cover?
Yeah. I mean, why not? They got a better chance of staying within 30.
I don't know, man. Memphis can put up some points.
Can score.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be right. But Stephen F. Austin's better, and I like their head coach. I'll take him to cover.
All right, you're going to take the Lumberjacks to cover. How about UMass, John? I told you I was going to throw them
automatically.
I told you I was going to have the Minutemen in this segment. They're going on the road to Florida Atlantic. They're a 33-point dog to the Owls.
Yeah, they still got enough of Lane's leftovers to pour it on pretty good there. I think UMass. I mean, we ought to have them if you could go back in time, you remember that like SMU team that after probation was like a bunch of walk-ons?
Yes.
It's basically what UMass seems like right now. I mean, they're awful.
Yeah.
You can't even if that was your first game, like let's say you're a kid and the first game you ever attended was a UMass game at McGuirk Stadium. You probably would never be a college football fan.
Yeah. I don't know if there are many UMass fans just floating around out there, though.
You impressed that I knew it was McGuirk Stadium?
I did. Your knowledge now. You know, we were having lunch yesterday, and we were talking college basketball, and in all 300 plus schools in college basketball that compete, and I'm sure I threw out some weird schools, and you knew the mascots, man. I don't know. You probably know all 350, however many teams there are.
I don't really know how. Like that should be some kind of like college exit exam for something for like useless knowledge.
Yeah. Well, you're putting it to use somehow.
You know what the weird thing about mascots is though? Like some of those schools, you can look at their logo and what their mascot actually is is not anything like the logo looks.
It's true.
I tell you, we ought to rank. I think you know who's in the SoCon. I like Mercer's. I think they got a cool bear logo in the
right in the M. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, the Catamounts logo is pretty good. Western Carolina. Yeah. Chattanooga is just a big C now. What happened to the train?
I don't like that.
What happened to the train? They used to have a train. You remember that?
Yeah, with the mockingbird with his head out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool. Even if you go back in the day, but we have to be politically correct now. Remember when T.O. played there? They had the old spear on their helmet.
That's right.
The moccasins, as they used to be called.
That's right.
Which I thought was really cool because if you didn't want to be, that way in a PC type way, you could have made it a moccasin snake, and that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
And had like the cobra symbol from G.I. Joe. That would have been perfect.
Yeah. College basketball season starting next week, really. So we might have to just do a show on just college mascots and stuff. Just
we'll do one. Well, like you remember when ESPN used to have that full 24 hours of basketball? I feel like you could just do a show on mascots for 24 hours.
There's some interesting ones out there, I tell you.
But like, have you seen the game times for like basketball to start? But I know it's Thanksgiving, so I guess it doesn't really matter anyway. So that they're tip off at like 1:00 and 4. But the funny thing is that somebody, I think it was John Rothstein, said, well, this will be the most watched basketball season ever.
Probably. Yeah, you're probably right for sure. All right, let's get back here to football, the underdogs. How about Abilene Christian, John? Going on the road to Virginia. They're a 39.5-point dog to the Cavaliers.
Let's not be cavalier about this. That's pretty serious. 39 points is an awful lot of. I mean, I know they're an FCS school.
Yeah, but Virginia? I know Virginia about that
too. Yeah, I'm gonna take Abilene to cover.
I do too. That's a lot. That's a lot of points.
I mean, it's not like Virginia's setting the world on fire. I mean, maybe if this were last year's Virginia team, I would definitely.
Yeah, they should have lost to Louisville last weekend.
Yes. Well, talk about a crazy game. Back and forth.
Yeah.
Louisville's had a tough year, man. I mean,
they do.
It's been a tough year. I feel like they've been in a lot of their games.
Hey, but they're up right now 6-0 on Syracuse.
You know what I was thinking wouldn't be a bad hire for South Carolina is Dino Babers.
It's a good coach. He's done some good things with Syracuse,
and he's had success some success against Clemson, which a lot of people haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a win against them and played Clemson fairly tough a couple of times. So yeah, you're right there. All right, last one here, John. The Lions of North Alabama.
Yes. You know, they were a Division II power in the Gulf South Conference for a long time.
What are they? Are these? What are they? SWAC? No. What are they?
They are in the Big South now.
Big South. Okay, they're in the Big South. All right. So they are going on the road to Provo, Utah.
Oh, Lordy.
Taking on BYU. 47-point dog.
Whoa.
47.
I say that and didn't. How many did they win in Boise State by?
Wow.
Watch BYU just be the best team in the country.
They're good. You know, they might have a legit. You know how UCF fans.
I wonder like what the line would be if they play Clemson or Alabama. Or Ohio State.
Probably a couple scores. I think 10-14.
Yeah, that's probably about right. I'd just be interested for the fan interest part of it for them to play.
Yeah.
A school like just because not that I think they could win, but I do think that they could give Clemson, Alabama a pretty good game.
Better than Oklahoma has done in previous years.
Yeah, why we keep letting like Oklahoma in there? And why
Oklahoma
Notre
loses.
Dame get in there and get just absolutely blasted.
Oklahoma. Notre Dame has not scored a point in the college football playoffs. Granted, they've only played one playoff game, but still.
Well, at least Ohio State has something in common when they got blanked by Clemson.
Yeah, in a playoff game. That's true.
Yes,
very true. All right, John. So that's the big underdogs this week. Let's make our picks now. Last week we both went 6-3. The only game that we differed on last week got canceled.
Yeah, that was the one where I picked Coastal or Troy to beat Coastal to ruin, but it almost makes it better because I can pick that ruining the dream, game if I give a little bit of a hint. But
well, we'll get to that game. Don't worry. But we're going to start with the SEC matchup, the Battle of the Columbias, Missouri at South Carolina. Muschamp no longer there.
What a bad football game.
The Mike Bobo era starting now, at least the interim Mike Bobo era starting in South Carolina, starting at South Carolina. Can the Gamecocks find a way to win after a really bad week?
They'll play better. What would be hilarious is if they just came out and all of a sudden like had a great defense. Like Missouri had like negative yardage offense for the game, but that won't happen. Missouri will win this game, but it'll be ugly. It's gonna be like 20-17.
Yeah, they're only a 6-point favorite. Missouri is. Yeah, it's gonna be close. I don't think either team obviously is not very good, and I just wonder what the attitude right now in the locker room with South Carolina is. Obviously, you're seeing it play out on social media. Some players and former players just are lashing out at the South Carolina fan base right now, and you wonder how that's going to go over on the.
Well, honestly, the fans didn't get Muschamp fired. Muschamp fired himself.
Well, I don't know. The fans chanting "Fire Muschamp" in the stands.
Well, that happened. that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You lose when you score 42 points and lose, by 17.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to.
And the last time they were at home, they got skunked pretty much.
Yeah. So there wasn't. Pretty much everybody knew he wasn't going to last the rest of the year.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, if they kept him, they're going to have to figure out some way to get rid of him, like contract-wise.
No, I completely agree there. So you going with Missouri as well, huh? I'm taking the Tigers there. So we're both taking Missouri. All right. sort of an interesting Big 12 matchup here. Kansas State at Iowa State.
This is a kind of an intriguing matchup. I feel like more positives about Kansas State that, after the start they got, they've looked pretty good ever since. Iowa State, too. These are two teams that started, the year with losses to Sunbelt teams?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
And they've, for the most part, played really well. I mean, just like you mentioned, Iowa State is in a position now where they can win the Big 12. So, but if Kansas State were to win this game, that
puts them right back. Yeah, it puts them right back in the conversation.
Yeah, and Iowa State has got a big one next week against Texas, who's back in the top 25. And then Iowa State's will finish the season. They've got a tricky schedule down the stretch because then they have that West Virginia team, and you don't know which West Virginia will show up.
Yeah.
So, having said all that, I'm going to go Iowa State.
Yeah, I think the Cyclones are just ever since that. Was it Arkansas State? No, it wasn't. It was Louisiana, who they lost to at the beginning of the year. Ever since that,
and then Arkansas State
beat Kansas State, but ever since for Iowa State, they've just been playing on a different level, and they lost a close one against a really good Oklahoma State team. They had chances to win that game though, but I mean, if Oklahoma State were to lose this week, right? I mean, Iowa State still has so much to play for.
They've got a lot in front of them.
And I don't know, why is nobody throwing Matt Campbell's name out as a potential coaching hire at South Carolina?
If I'm South Carolina, I'm getting on the phone, or like we were talking about, like the agents getting them to talk together. And Matt Campbell is one of the probably should be, I would think, one of the most highly sought after coaches.
I absolutely agree. So that reason I'm going Iowa.
Okay, so wasn't it really when South Carolina hired Muschamp? Did they really hire him over Lincoln Riley? Please tell me that's not true.
Well, I don't know if Lincoln was in the running for that. Like I said, I knew Tom Herman was, but I
thought they were both finalists, and Ray Tanner picked Muschamp over Lincoln Riley.
I don't know. I don't know about Lincoln.
Some people might say stick to baseball.
Ray Tanner, not a very good athletic director. So I'm going to take the Cyclones as well. Big Ten matchup here. It's just been an awful, awful year for Michigan. They need something. They need a win, and a loss to Rutgers would be the complete opposite of what this program needs. If they go on the road to New Jersey and lose this game, I don't know what they do. I don't see how Harbaugh sticks around, honestly.
Not from a team that has just absolutely blistered Rutgers, a program, that they're not even on the same map as Rutgers in terms of tradition and all that. So losing this game even though it's on the road, I mean, I don't see a way, Coach Harbaugh saved himself this year. I think Rutgers wins the football game.
Wow.
I never thought I'd say that. But it's I'm gonna have first year we did the show. I mean, they lost back-to-back weeks. It was like 150-7.
Yes.
Ohio State. If you'd have told me that I would be picking Rutgers today to beat Michigan, I would have said,
you're gonna take Greg Schiano over Jim Harbaugh here.
He's a better coach.
Yeah.
He's the guy Tennessee should have hired if it wouldn't have been for some message board.
Yeah, it's true. I'm going to have a little bit of faith in Harbaugh. I'm going to have a little bit of faith in the players at Michigan. They've been kicked around the past couple of weeks. They've got to dig deep and find a way to win. I think this is the perfect opportunity, though, for Michigan to get a win. I think it'll be close. I really do. I think
way.
it'll be close, which is weird to say, but I'm gonna
way.
have enough faith. I'm gonna have enough faith that Michigan finds a way to win.
I like Michigan. It's just, it's tough to see their program as it is for Florida State, even though I'm not a big Florida State fan. But like, if you see any program like that in that kind of, situation, I think it brings down the quality of what people perceive the Big Ten to be necessarily what it is.
Well, as far as the Michigan situation is concerned, John, you have nobody to blame but yourself. App State completely wrecked this Michigan program.
They wrecked the whole program, and then they fired Lloyd Carr, which was even a worse, the worst decision you could make right there. I mean, and they've never really recovered from that.
No, they haven't. 2007
right
was the worst thing that ever happened to Michigan football.
It's been a train wreck ever since.
Sure has.
I mean,
wow. But you're going to take the Scarlet Knights at home.
But who do they interview? Like, who's going to want, like, that? I mean, it's Michigan, but it's a different Michigan than it was when Lloyd Carr, stepped down.
Yeah, it's not the same program at all.
I mean, think about this. They were just 10 years removed from a national championship when they asked Lloyd Carr to step down. They won the national championship in 97.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy to me. It's that, I mean, now you're thinking about keeping Harbaugh another year. You can't be thinking about keeping Harbaugh another year.
Well, they might not have to if they lose Saturday, but I'm going to go with the Wolverines. I'm going to take them over Rutgers. I think it'll be a close one, though.
I think I'm going to take
you got the
Harbaugh finding a different mode of transportation back to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, maybe he gets a bus down to Columbia, South Carolina. Maybe the Gamecocks pick him up if he were to get fired.
That would be hilarious if they were like, well, we found out Harbaugh was going to get fired, so we're just going to interview him now.
Yeah. All right. In the ACC, Virginia Tech's lost a couple of just heartbreakers in the past couple of weeks. They now have to try to rebound, go on the road to Pittsburgh, take on the Panthers.
Yeah. Pittsburgh's kind of they're a tough place. That's a tough stadium to win in, even though they haven't won very much there. They're probably used to playing before what looks like, at least when there's a lot of people there, a more empty stadium, just because it's so big. But, I like Pittsburgh in this game. They're at home.
They at least have some momentum. They just drubbed Florida State last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And you would have thought that would have given a lot of teams, the funny thing about Florida State is when they drubbed North Carolina, you would have thought that it would give them then, some momentum. And then they just got absolutely railed against Louisville the next week.
And on the flip side, you got Virginia Tech, who's lost the last 2 games by a combined 4 points.
I think Virginia Tech is a team that might be giving up.
Yeah,
because they have lost so many close games.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that.
You're gonna pick Virginia Tech, though, aren't you?
I am. I'm gonna pick Tech. Look. You don't know with both of these teams. Really, you don't know what you're gonna get from a week to week.
The most odd, but 2 4-4 teams, and like literally anybody. Which will make it probably the game of the day.
It's a 3-point spread in favor of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the slight upset in Pittsburgh here.
All right, so we're going to
2 old Big East.
Battle of the old Big East. That's a good call there. But I mean, I'm going to go with the Hokies. Donald will be happy to know that I went with the Virginia Tech on this one.
I picked them most of the year, and then they haven't done. They've gone 4-4.
So. Now watch them win.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're just not picking them again at their games if that happens.
Yeah, okay. All right, how about your game? App State at Coastal.
It's been a good season, Coastal. I mean, you've held college footballs. You've had visions of the crystal ball dancing in your head, but or the Sun Belt Trophy. But this is where it comes to an end. I think Zach Thomas really has a day that he has not had all year for App State, and I think App State racks up, about 500 yards of offense and wins a shootout 45-42.
I knew you wouldn't pick against your alma mater. I had a feeling that you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to confuse you and let you think I was.
Yeah, you threw me off there, John. You threw me off.
Although I will say this for Coastal, I'm a big fan of Chad Staggs and their defense, who used to be at Furman, the defensive coordinator. So should they win the game, I'll be happy for him. But I just think App State's going to
I am rolling with the chant. I am rolling with the Chanticleers. They have just been beating people this year.
To be the man, you got to beat the man. And Joseph has been the man of that Sun Belt Conference.
Well, old Rockadoodle-Doo down there in Conway.
I think his name's Chaucer the Chanticleer.
He's coming. He's coming for Joseph.
At least there's one chicken mascot in the state that really has something going.
Yeah, App State. They're not. Oh man, they're gonna have their vision checked. They're gonna be seeing a lot of teal on Saturday afternoon.
What? Okay. In the realm of dumb, I like Coastal. I have nothing against them, but I make a teal field. It's already green.
Just a light green, blue green. Looks like the ocean.
Yeah. I wondered that. I mean, thanks, Boise State, for giving a bunch of programs bad ideas.
Yeah. At least they're not. At least it's not Eastern Michigan with their gray field. Gray.
What about Eastern Washington as a red field?
Yeah, that's true. I'd rather have that than gray.
True. Gray. That's what an awesome idea. Only Eastern Michigan could come up with such ingenuity.
They're at Renessee or whatever stadium, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going with the Chanticleers, man.
That's in Ypsilanti.
Ypsilanti, yeah. All right, Coastal Carolina's going to get a big one. The crown is going to be passed on Saturday, John.
I think Chaucer's going to be running around like his head's cut off.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a good one. I expect it to be one of the better games all day. Quite honestly, though.
Yeah,
but App State absolutely cannot get off to a slow start like they have in the past couple of weeks. Can't happen.
And it almost cost them last week.
Because if they get in a hole early against Coastal, I don't know if they can dig themselves out of it.
I'll give you a name here. App State is leading the nation. I think number one in the nation in pick sixes the past few years. And they've had really good defensive backs. Shamar Jean Charles might be the key to this one. He leads the nation in pass breakups with 13 and 14 passes defended. He's ESPN's number 3 breakout player in 2020 behind BYU's Zach Wilson and Alabama quarterback Mac Jones.
Wow. Defense might be a big key for App State in this one. All right, let's go out real quick to the Pac-12. This is the first time we get to see Utah this week. Their first 2 games both got canceled because of COVID. They finally get to take the field against the 2-0, number 20th ranked USC Trojans.
Man, it must seem like it's been a long time for them to actually get to take the field.
Yeah.
USC's look good though, haven't they? I mean, the comeback win. Like the football gods are sitting well with them right now.
They've had 2 comeback wins in like the final few minutes.
And like 2 touchdowns that were like tipped by the other team, and they caught them each of the past 2 weeks. And there were critical scores in both of those games. I think I'm going to go to USC here. I haven't picked them yet.
Yeah.
I don't think I've picked them yet this year, but they've been impressive. I mean, what they've done with that offense is tough to stop. I think I'm going to go USC here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just simply because the game is in Salt Lake, and Rice Eccles is probably one of the most toughest places to play in the country. But I don't know anything about this Utah team.
You really don't, because you haven't seen them play.
We haven't seen them
come out and be awesome.
Yeah, I mean they really could, or they could just be absolutely awful. I mean, I have no idea.
I guess fans probably aren't, or like students probably aren't going to be able to go, so it's probably going to be a different atmosphere.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with USC as well. I think maybe a close one. Watch USC have to win it again in the final few minutes.
That was a really good game last year.
Yeah.
Remember, they lost both their starting quarterbacks in that game, and then the third string came in and was like bawling. Like, where's this guy?
It ended up winning the game for the Trojans. So.
Right, yeah.
So who knows? Keaton Slovis has been playing pretty well this year for them, but we'll both go with the Trojans there. All right, John, how about Bedlam? Oklahoma State at Oklahoma.
Should we mention Matt Gundy's record against Oklahoma again?
What is he, 2-11?
Yep.
He hasn't beaten them since like 2011 or something like that?
Yeah. When they were like that year, they went like 11-1, lost to Iowa State or whatever.
I mean, he's taken some pretty good Oklahoma State teams into Norman, but just they've never seemed to get over that hump. I think honestly, this is his best time, like his best chance. I mean,
his best chance. If they can get him, they got a rattler, and that defense is good enough to rattle a rattler.
And with the combination of Sanders and Hubbard and some of those playmakers on offense, I think
their offense is playing a lot better.
I don't know. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I just like what I've seen.
I am too.
I like what I've seen this year from them.
I agree. I think this is going to be the year
outside of the Texas game. I don't know what that was.
So if they don't win this game, the question is, are the shouts a little bit louder for Mike Gundy? I mean, is he getting?
Yes, I think so. You have a real good shot at beating your rival finally, and if you don't do it, I mean, being an alumni of the school only gets you so much. I mean, look where Harbaugh is with Michigan. I mean,
yeah, because the one thing that was saving him really this year was people were saying, well, really the only teams he's really lost to are Ohio State, Michigan State, and then, well, this season happened and they're losing to everybody. So, so I think that you can only get by on that for so long. I mean, Harbaugh inevitably was only going to survive on losing to Ohio State maybe at most another year.
Mike Gundy's lost to Oklahoma a bunch. But in the grand...
It makes you wonder, is Oklahoma State, and I know that's where Terry Don Phillips came from, is it a football school? It used to be a basketball school when
I think it's a football school now, but
yeah,
I think that switch sort of happened with Barry Sanders.
And then Les Miles was the coach.
And then when Les Miles was there in the 90s or early 2000s. Oklahoma State doesn't.
Or when they started paying football players.
Yeah. Oklahoma State doesn't beat Oklahoma very often, but I think this is the year they finally get it done.
I always think that Oklahoma State is like the underachieving program, though. They've had so many good players. And
they could have they could have played for a national championship back 9 years ago had they not lost to Iowa State.
And who was it that got in ahead of them?
LSU, Alabama. It was the rematch between.
Oh, that's right. And LSU had 2 losses. They're was that the year that they That was 11. That's right. LSU, Alabama. Ooh, that national championship was awful.
21-0.
LSU didn't even get across midfield, but like
no, they didn't. And remember the game that the regular season matchup between those was 9-6. LSU had won the regular season.
Interception that was like caught. It was a
Yeah.
simultaneous reception, and they looked at it for like an hour. So,
but I'm gonna.
The Honey Badger might have been involved in that play.
All right, we both got Oklahoma State there. All right, John. There's a top 25 matchup in the Big Ten that's not Ohio State, Indiana. Do you know who it is?
Northwestern and who?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. That's
Wisconsin at Northwestern.
Ooh, it's kind of a tasty matchup for the simple fact that it's one of those years. Northwestern and Indiana are kind of like the storylines, I think, for this year in the Big Ten.
Northwestern's been pretty good. I mean, but look at Wisconsin and what they've done. I mean, what they did to Illinois. Then they had 2-3 weeks off when they didn't play anybody, and then they just absolutely just beat down Michigan last week. I mean, incredible.
Like it looked like, what was it, 42-11 or something?
49-11.
49-11.
That's 2 years in a row that Wisconsin has
beat down
yes.
Yeah, because the last year, remember,
it was like 35-0.
Yeah, because I think that was the weekend that Furman played the Citadel, and we were like, why do they have this game on right now?
Awful. Just awful. But yeah, I think this is an underrated top 25 matchup. I worry about Northwestern's offense. They're not very good offensively. Their strength is their defense. And I feel like they're going to have to try to score some points, which may be hard to do. I mean, I don't really know. We still don't know a whole lot about this Wisconsin team.
They've been good at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Badgers. I like, from what I've seen so far, I like the Badgers to get a big win on the road there.
I agree. I think it'll be a pretty good game. I think Northwestern is pretty good. I just think that Wisconsin surprisingly got a really good offense. I mean, maybe not shouldn't be, but I always think of them in terms of like, a smash mouth, run the ball right at you team, where they're really been a really good team throwing the football this year.
All right, for this one, we're going to do a little bit different because I know we're both going to pick Clemson, Florida State. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick score for this game. Clemson a 35-point favorite.
See, and I think that's the hardest thing to do is like trying not to score. Because against the Citadel where, Clemson basically ran the same play the entire second half. Not the entire, but they didn't do all that much. They threw it deep a couple of times, I think, but it wasn't like, it's hard to Florida State's so bad.
Yeah.
That Clemson's going to have to try not to score.
It's kind of like, was it the Georgia Tech game where Clemson just kept scoring?
You almost think that Florida State should request a running clock
in the second half. Yeah.
It really could, and I do, but I'll say this for Florida State. I think if they're patient, Mike Norvell will be a right hire.
I think so too. They've got to give him more time than they did Taggart.
Yeah, they did that guy wrong. Luckily, I think everybody knows what we know is that it wasn't his. He got thrown under the bus. Pretty much everybody I talked to said that Jimbo Fisher knew it, and that was and part it was a kind of a bad hire too from Florida State.
Yeah,
because he was too young to have that opportunity. He was great. I think he was at Oregon.
Yeah,
he was doing pretty good. So anyway, that being said, I'm going to pick. Was it 59-10 a few years ago?
Something like that.
I'm gonna go 68
Oh my God.
to 14.
All right. Well, I went a little bit. I went 52-10.
68. Feeling good about. Could be 75 actually.
Good.
I mean, realistically.
In 1981, the national championship year, Clemson.
What's Florida State's worst loss in history? Is a
Probably that Clemson loss. Well, I know that was their worst home loss in history.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah, that's right. So you mean Clemson has handed Miami and Florida State their two worst home losses?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The state of Florida must love Clemson.
That's why Florida probably never.
That's why they recruit so well there, I guess.
Yeah, man.
Oh, Florida.
You remember, in 1981, that in the national championship that year, Clemson beat Wake Forest, dropped 81 or 80 points on Wake Forest that year.
Wouldn't it be something cool if they could score more points than that against Florida State?
Yeah, just drop 100.
Seriously though, I think it's one of the more amazing things in my lifetime is not Clemson being favored against it is shocking that they're a 34-point road favorite against Florida State.
I never thought I would see that.
Not for anyone, not just not Clemson, Alabama, or anybody, but it's because it's Florida State. That's shocking.
It is shocking. I wish we need to see another Georgia Tech versus Cumberland game. Somebody needs to go out there. Somebody needs to go out there and drop 222 points again.
They may have to make Florida State put together a team by the end of the year. So you might be right.
Yeah. All right. So we both got Clemson, but John's got Clemson just
68. I got a
basketball scores over there.
No mercy.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. And then the big matchup in the Big Tens, the Indiana-Ohio State games in the shoe. It's probably going to be cold up there. It's going to be cold up there in Columbus, Ohio. Can the Hoosiers continue to find the magic that they've had so far this season? Or are they going to run into that big, bad Ohio State team and get crushed and that be the end of Indiana? As much as I would love to pick the Hoosiers, I just don't. I can't. No, I can't do it. Can't do it.
But that's not. I will be pulling.
Yes,
100%.
Oh, absolutely. I will be pulling against myself in this game.
Yes, I'll be so happy if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Because I just can't stand Ohio State. Sorry for any Ohio State people. I mean, part of it's just it's just obnoxious seeing them in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
Of course, probably people say that about Clemson.
About Clemson and Alabama too. Yeah, I know. I get it.
But there's just,
we also live here in South Carolina where all the Ohio people are moving to.
Right.
So
they come to our beaches and invade.
Yeah, it's an invasion. Ohio's
with all their Rose Bowl. 2000 whatever, Ohio State.
I swear, I drive down the road in Greenville sometimes and see more Ohio State bumper stickers than I do Clemson.
They all go to they're in school at Bob Jones because they're all Midwestern.
Yeah,
and they're all Ohio State fans, or they're either some of them are Michigan fans, which makes for an interesting dynamic at Bob Jones probably. But there was literally a car parked there the other day that it said, the only thing worse than the pandemic is Michigan against Ohio State. Michigan's record against Ohio. And I'm just are you really putting that on your car window? For everybody to see? And I'm just I mean, is that even a rivalry anymore? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
As much as I want to, I got to pick Ohio State. I mean, as much as I hate to.
Yeah, I'm the same way. As much as I would love to pick Indiana, I just can't do it. I think Ohio State's
What
too
time's
strong.
kickoff for that game?
That's a noon game. Fox.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss it because the best game at noon is App State and Coastal Carolina.
Well, then you got Clemson, Florida State's also at noon.
I said the best game.
I wasn't saying that Clemson, Florida State.
Okay, on what planet would you have ever said that App State, Coastal Carolina would be 10 times the game Clemson, Florida State would be?
2020.
I mean, realistically, that's a true statement, though.
It's a weird year. I tell you. I'll tell you. It's a weird year. All right, update some scores here. Louisville up 20-0 on Syracuse at halftime. So it looks like the Cardinals.
Old Scott Satterfield.
Cardinals on their way to getting their third win of the year. Syracuse, man, it's just been a bad year there. How about Minnesota currently leading Purdue?
Ooh, and Purdue had been one of those teams. You know, they beat Iowa early in the season. I think they had a game canceled due to COVID. Maybe it was Wisconsin game and they had canceled.
Yeah.
So Jeff Brom, the coach there, he'd be a good hire for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be somebody I think South Carolina should.
You remember the Louisville really wanted him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he almost left with Purdue to go. I mean, and then he decided last minute to go back to Purdue.
Yeah. And then UMass holding strong. It's only 7-0 at the start of the second quarter.
Ooh. 1 quarter down, only 7 given up.
Yeah. That's pretty good for the Minutemen.
Man, yeah, it can change in a minute.
Yeah, that'll probably get out of hand in a heartbeat. But looking forward to some good games this weekend.
Do you think there's
John?
a UMass football message board?
Probably not. Why would there be?
I want to look at. Well, I mean, somebody's got to be upset. Maybe nobody is.
I mean, I doubt anybody cares.
Disgruntled alum that's like, I remember when we were 1AA and we won the national championship.
They should pull an Idaho and just drop back down.
Don Brown, I've said this before, the defensive coordinator at Michigan used to be the head coach there. Maybe when Harbaugh gets fired, there's their head coach.
There's your head coach, yeah. Looking forward to some good games this weekend, John. Get back on Sunday and we'll kind of recap everything. But should be a pretty good weekend. We won't have any shows at all next week as I will not be in South Carolina. Next weekend.
Are you going out of state?
I am. I'm going out of state.
Let me call the CDC.
Yeah, they recommended we don't, but flying.
You better like take your laser tag helmet with you with a visor on.
Wear a face shield and all that good stuff. Yeah,
I do want to get a good face shield just so I can feel like a cornerback walking around all the time in the mid-90s.
I'm going to the Lone Star State, so that'll be for Thanksgiving. So that'll be.
You having brisket for Thanksgiving?
Oh God, who knows?
Brisket turkey,
mutton or some weird.
Lamb.
Yeah, I guess there was something out there, but yeah. So no shows at all next week, but we'll get back this Sunday, recap everything, and John, we'll go ahead and make picks on Sunday for the Thanksgiving weekend games.
Yeah, we'll do that, and looking forward to this game this weekend. I think will create a little bit of separation, for some of the conference, especially the Big Ten, I think.
Yeah.
But looking forward to it. I can't wait. And go Mountaineers.
Go Chanticleers.
Got Chaucer over there chanting.
That's right. So, all right, John, been a good show. Hope everybody's enjoyed this episode of The Spread. Thanks for listening to The Spread podcast here on Podbean. Head on over to thespreadfootball.com and check out all of our weekly articles and catch replays of each show on the podcast page. Also, head on over to social media and follow us on Facebook at The Spread with Cameron Tarrant and on Twitter at The Spread Podcast. We'll catch you next time.